Hey guys, welcome to another Godzilla Month video, and this has been a very exciting video for me that I've been planning for a super long time. I have Matt from Monstrosities here,
Yo.
and this has been a discussion that Matt and I have been wanting to discuss for quite a while now. It's been about 2 years in the making of just trying to, find the right time to do it, scheduling, all that kind of stuff. I actually wanted to get him in the past two Godzilla months, but scheduling just didn't work that way. But finally, Godzilla Month 2022, here we go, ready to have it. So, in today's video, this is going to be an open discussion, sort of a mix of positives, negatives, sort of stuff like that. But it's just going to be talking about collecting and sort of the dangers of it, sort of how, collecting is very fun for us in the hobby. It's something that is a big part of it, but it has a dark side to it. It can potentially have a dark side to it. And I felt that this isn't really talked about a lot in the fan base as much as I think it should be, and just to have that healthy discussion. But before we get into it, I want to make a massive disclaimer. This is not an attack on anyone who collects stuff. Obviously, I and Matt still collect things. This is nothing. We're not trying to make you guys feel bad for collecting. If you have your eye on something that's expensive or whatnot, we're not telling you, hey, don't do that. This is just trying to have a open and honest conversation about just some red flags that if some stuff is starting to notice, like pop up in your life, or just certain things to keep an eye out for before it can become a harmful thing, where less of a hobby, more of an addiction that can negatively impact your life. So, but once again, it is not supposed to be a attack on anybody. So just keep that in mind. So first part, we're going to talk about what I like to call the 5 W's of collecting. Obviously, it's not going to be all 5 of these W's because they're a little bit weird. Some of them don't match up right. But we're just going to introduce basically how we got into collecting. Obviously, what do we collect? How did we start collecting? When did we start collecting? Stuff like that. So, Matt, I'll let you take it away. What was like the stuff that when did you start to collect stuff?
Well, you see, my collecting story is a little weird because, maybe 5 or 6 years ago was when I was, doing the figure stuff, doing the toy stuff, And since then, I still have some figures and stuff, but since then, that has all changed to books and magazines and all this.
You can see it behind you, too.
Well, yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Boxes of magazines over there and stuff, and it's I would say probably 5 or 6 years ago, because I didn't have this stuff growing up and stuff, because I could finally afford to get it myself. That's what I wanted. I wanted all these things or whatever. But once that kind of came into my life, it was kind of like, okay, I'm good. Book stuff, especially these days, it's more so for the use of video creation, as opposed to just being like, I love all these pictures. There's a lot of good information in there that can be used for content and stuff, but then on that end, it really, I gotta limit myself to how much of this you pick up.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's anything. I don't think my collecting story is anything special. I think it's pretty much the same as everybody else. You like your tokusatsu, you like your kaiju, and you just want to get into it.
What was like the first line of figures that you got? Was it like Bandai stuff or?
Dude, I think my first Bandai ever was a Hyper Gauss from Gamera 3 in 99. Okay. Because these things were super expensive, and I didn't have a lot of money growing up and stuff like that. I think the Trendmasters line was probably my first one. That's when I actually got Godzilla toys that wasn't the Imperial Godzilla or something of that nature. But then, from probably about 2000 to 2015, 14, somewhere in that range, it was all Bandai stuff, Dabbled very lightly in X Plus, but basically just anything that caught my attention, YMSF, primarily, Sofubi and vinyl stuff, mostly Bandai.
Okay, yeah. And what's the kind of sites that you would recommend to people to buy stuff on? Is other than eBay, because eBay can sometimes be a horrible place to buy if you're wanting to save money. So, what's other places that you think are worth going to?
Well, I mean, it really depends because, even stuff from 7 years ago are totally different now, because like I said, these days I'm primarily looking for like the books and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But you really just want to kind of keep your eyes and ears open everywhere, because it is eBay on occasion.
Yeah.
eBay, you'll have people trying to dump stuff, and sometimes at extraordinarily discounted prices. For instance, and I'm just going to show this right here. This is not a bragging point, but this is just kind of to show.
It's so going to be a bragging point.
This thing right here, this is an original 62
wow.
King Kong vs. Godzilla theater pamphlet, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see this on here. There's a Mandarake price tag of about 40,000 yen. Now, on a good day, it's about 400 bucks.
Wow.
Not now, but I got this on eBay for $15 shipped.
Ah, nice.
And so, but that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. It's like there are things like that to find, but Mandarake, Mercari, Japan, which is basically like a Craigslist, in Japan. Of course, you got to go through middleman services for this. Yahoo Japan auctions. Domestically speaking, here, Facebook groups. People are always trying to unload stuff in various groups, and sometimes you can get some pretty good deals that way. Sometimes, Facebook Marketplace. Sometimes things like apps like Craigslist, things of that nature. I mean, you can find all sorts of stuff. I found like a group of Ultraman Blu-rays for like $30. And they retail for about 20 a piece. And you just got to be on the lookout for stuff. If you're looking for something specifically, that's when it becomes a little bit more challenging. You know what I mean? But I'm also one of these people who, like, I will, unless I have something very specific, if I see a deal, chances are I'm going to like try to swoop it up because they happen often. It's not completely uncommon. But you have to have an eye out for it.
And that's something like when you were talking about how you got that deal on that book there, or magazine, was it?
Theater pamphlet, yeah.
Theater pamphlet. Like that kind of thing that you just did is something that we'll talk about later on how to like have a positive, aspect on collecting. It's doing stuff like that. Sort of the thrill for the hunt too. But yeah, I mean, so for me, it's I started out buying Trendmasters Godzilla figures. That was like the first toy line that I did back in the 90s. And if you guys watched my last video, it would have been the my collection update. You guys saw I had a little bit of a story of it was like the large scale Trendmasters Godzilla. I think he had like the armor pieces on him too. He was like one of those armored, like they had like guns attached to them. Trendmasters was crazy. The 90s was crazy. But that's how I started out, and it just, like anyone, it just grew from there. Found out about Bandai Creation, and then the internet came around, and then learned all just huge world opened up to me about, there's Bandai Japan stuff, there's X Plus, there's YMSF that you were talking about, there's the what's the colorized ones? They're like customized. They're a crazy brand.
Marmot.
That's the ones. Yeah, they're like all the different color schemes for the characters, and like 1,000 different burning Godzillas. So, yeah.
I do gotta say, I finally saw just the other day the best variation of the burning Godzilla. Did you see that thing?
No, what is it?
1200 Godzilla.
No.
I forget who's putting it out. It's an American toy line, but it's basically Godzilla at meltdown. So like his skull.
The one with Destroya. It's matched with.
Yeah.
Okay, I did see that on Facebook. Yeah.
Variation, because that burning Godzilla thing is just a cliche at this point.
I know, right? It's unique for burning Godzilla. Finally, like, a little bit of his skin melting off. We haven't really seen that before. That's a cool one. Yeah.
Sorry for going off on that tangent. But
No, that's good. Yeah. So. Yeah, and then like obviously X Plus was like a big component of my collecting back in the day. You all know this. This is not so surprise, but so that's how that collecting was. I primarily collect Godzilla stuff. I don't really go out of my way to do any other kind of series or anything. I remember back in the day I think with Ultraman I did buy the first 2 seasons on Blu-ray because that's when I was trying to get into it back then. And then I think. I would feel it's like some video games. I think I would buy like the King Kong video game. I actually loved the Ultraman video games. There were these series called Ultraman Fighting Evolution. Really awesome fighting games. Highly recommend those. But yeah, so that's you know, kind of how that is. And Matt, you still collect, right? Like you still have a sort of in the hobby of still collecting?
No, it's not like I have shipments coming in from Japan every week. No, Chris.
I mean, it's
no.
part. Yeah, I mean, I know that the that the merchandise is also part of your content, but at the
Oh
same time
no,
as
it
like,
definitely is.
yeah,
It definitely is. Like I said, I primarily do the book stuff and the magazine stuff now, and I probably purchase stuff way more frequently than I should. I do obviously do some of the figure stuff too. It depends on what it's from. You know, I've been collecting things more so that means something to me.
yeah,
Um, so it's way more focused than it is just a generalized, oh, we're going to have figures of every monster, which is kind of what my collection was 7 years ago.
and that's yep, that was me. Yep.
Yep. Yep. And so, yes, very much still into it. More so these days, just in case if I see something that I'm like, oh, that's really neat. I've never seen that before, or this is going to help me with a video or something of that nature.
Right. Okay. Yeah, me, it's I've slowed down tremendously. Again, with my last video, you guys have seen how it's, you know, how my collection started. I mean, I have like video recordings of how it all was because I did, you know, collecting update videos back in the day, and so like it's crazy to see how it was starting and then how it grew and then how it like shrunk tremendously again. The last figure I bought was the Yuji Sakai Godzilla D4 X Plus figure, and you know that one was fun because I didn't even know that my fiance was recording me when I was unboxing it, and so then obviously that's what you guys see on my channel is that video there. So that was a fun time, but so that's like the last big figure that I bought. Really everything else it's past. You know, I was really into buying the Defo Real X Plus figures when those were like starting to come out. But X Plus has like it. They started out with that line because it was perfect for me. I was like, oh, you know what? They're cheap. They're small. They don't take up that much shelf space, and they only come out like every couple months. Like there wasn't like a bunch every single month, so it was you could like save up money and actually have a way to do that. But then X Plus, I think they saw how much money they were making off it, and they just started just putting those out like crazy, like 2-3 figures a month. And obviously I think just because of everything with inflation or whatnot, and also COVID was a big impact on X Plus, I think too. Their prices have just skyrocketed, so like those little guys aren't $50 anymore. They're like sometimes $70-$80. I think the Biolante that came out, yeah, it's going to be a little bit bigger because it is Biolante, but that thing was like almost $120, and that doesn't even count shipping. So what you're looking at is you're looking at a smaller Defo Real figure that's almost the same price as a normal 30 centimeter figure. So it just doesn't add up with like, oh, that's not really worth it anymore, you know? And the fact that, like I said, there's like multiple coming out a month now. It's like they're on top of the new movies too. Like, I mean, at Singular Point, they've had a bunch of Defo Reals on Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla King of the Monsters, like all that stuff they've been going crazy on. So I think even the anime Godzilla they did, or the anime trilogy, they did one of him too. So I had to stop buying that because it sucked. I really enjoyed having those figures. They were really cool, but it's just like, now again, it's becoming, that's when I was feeling that red flag. I was getting that like, you know what? It's becoming less fun, and now it's becoming more of a bill, and I'm not necessarily liking this anymore. So now I'm just kind of sitting with stuff that, similar to you, Matt, is that it's something that has to really mean something to me. Like it has to have either a sentimental value or either a gift from a friend. I have a bunch of stuff from you too. Like you, I remember you gave me the 1984 VHS from Japan, the Toho video one.
That's right.
Like that's really cool. I have the little 84 Yuji Sakai diorama guy that I got from you at that one G-Fest. So like that, you know, like that stuff is cool. But so that's kind of like the collecting stories, I guess, for us. Anything else on that, Matt?
No, I mean, no, not at the top of my head.
Okay. So now we'll get into the meat of this whole discussion. So we're gonna get a little, you know, less fun. We're gonna really get into it. So the conversations that no one wants to.
You know, everyone is going to just like leave you after this.
I know, they're just gonna be like, oh my God.
Me on, you know? I'm the biggest negative force of the Godzilla community. I might as well be the Destoroyah of the Godzilla community. You know?
Right. Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm down.
So again, I really need to preface this before we get into this section. This again, it is not supposed to be looking down on anyone who collects stuff. It's supposed to be just more of a honest conversation of like, hey, you know, is your collection starting to take over your life? Is your collection starting to kind of ruin your bank? Is your collection starting to become less of this fun hobby that you started and now is becoming more of this like, oh, how am I going to pay for this? Like I'm looking at my bills and I don't know how I'm going to be able to add that up. So this is the hard conversation that I've wanted to have for a long time. And of course, a lot of people haven't had the story that I've had with collecting, but I know that there's got to be people out there that have had similar situations when it comes to being addicted to that kind of stuff and having it impact their life negatively. Again, though, do not take any of this personally, and we are not attacking anyone. We just want to have an open conversation. So
Speak for yourself, Chris. I'm totally gonna be on the attack.
I know. That's why I brought you on here. But also this is a discussion. But if there is anything that I say that maybe you disagree with, totally bring it up. Like we can also have somewhat of a thing. Yeah. So again, first off, going into it too, I'm also not equal like saying that collecting is as bad as like other addictions out there that are worse in terms of stuff. It's same principles in how it can impact your life, but it's not like you're never gonna die by collecting. It's not like it's not alcoholism. It's not you drink too much you die. It's there's a different degree, of course, with this kind of stuff. But I still take serious with it because it did impact my life in a big way, and so I feel like now's a good time to talk about it. So first part of this, obviously, I think is the number one thing is money. Of course, that is like the biggest thing with collecting, and I think nowadays it's very hard because of scalpers. I mean, I know scalpers have always been kind of an issue in the fandom with stuff like that, but lately it just seems like, and I don't know if it's because of COVID happening with stocks being low and high demand and all that, but like it just seems like anything that's on a pre-order now gets just sucked up so quick. They buy so much stock, and people who genuinely want to just buy, I just wanted one copy. That's all I wanted, and they sell out like crazy, and then they put it on eBay for thousands of dollars. One of the biggest things was I remember it's obviously it's not related to Godzilla collecting, but in terms of like video games, when the PS5 came out and the Xbox Series X or whatever, it was ridiculous. It was like those. You could not find them anywhere, and then all of a sudden eBay had them up for like thousands of dollars, and it's like that's just like geez. So that's an aspect that makes it a little bit annoying because there are some people that they want that stuff so bad that they're just willing to pay any price, and that's why we still have scalpers, because there are people out there, they don't care, they're just going to be like, I'm going to get it. And that's something that I feel like if that is something where you look at an item on eBay and you're like, I really want that certain X Plus or that Bandai, take a little bit of extra time to do some homework, maybe go around some Facebook groups, look and see like if there's a deal going around. There's someone out there who's probably wanting to get rid of it who might even be willing to trade it for something else. So that's another big thing is it's not necessarily the first thing you see is not the first thing you need to buy. Like take some time maybe, like instead of shelling out all that money, I don't know, Matt, if there's something that you in terms of money, like stuff like that you have an idea on or an opinion.
Just like save money,
Yeah, save money. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always just about looking around for the best deal. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter if you're in Akihabara or if you're at G-Fest or if you're online. I mean, the chances are, unless if it's like that really extraordinarily rare thing, someone else is going to have it, and someone else is going to have it cheaper. Right. At least by a little bit. Just look around. But what you're talking about is kind of like basically educating yourself about something, and even just like if you're at a store or something, just quickly looking up on eBay or something, or even just regular retail prices for something, just to see where it compares with that. I mean, you're doing yourself a service, even if it saves you like $20. I mean, that's $20.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A couple gallons of gas, right?
Yeah, especially nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's why I said a couple. um, it's yeah, it's. I think just at the offset, because you were talking about things like alcoholism and how it's not really the same. I mean, collecting at the end of the day is a lot like everything else. It has got to be done, you know, just in a very controlled manner.
Responsibly.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly, responsibly. Um, and it can, ruin your life, or it can do whatever, just like alcoholism or anything else for that matter. You know what I mean? Um, and the money aspect is a huge thing because, as you pointed out, the prices for these things just keep on going up and up and up and up and up. And I think something to really, you really want to save some money. I mean, this is really the question that I think a lot of us, I pose this to my friends, and I should ask myself this more often too: is do you really need it? Do I really need this thing?
Yeah.
Will my life actually get better because of this? Or am I just going to have a dopamine rush when I get the box, open it up, see it, put it on the shelf, and then that's done for the afternoon, and, by tomorrow I'm going to be looking for something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's, it's a very slippery slope, but especially on the money aspect, man. I mean, the prices on a lot of this stuff is just ridiculous, but I would honestly, ask yourself those kinds of questions. Do I need this in my life? Is it that important? Can I wait? Because there's realistic things where you were talking about. You got scalpers, man. Pre-orders go up, and then within 5 seconds they're done because somebody has an army of bots or something behind that. So that's a very real problem. But you really just got to decide what is best for you, and I think that's what it comes down to. What is the best decision? The best adult decision you can make, regarding this. If you can afford it, great. If you can't, skip out.
Yeah.
There will be something else.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially in this fandom, especially in Godzilla, there will always be something else coming out around the corner.
There's always something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, money's a big thing. There's it's especially nowadays. Again, it's harder and harder to. I couldn't imagine collecting nowadays as I did back in the day. Like, there's just no way. Like, I don't know how I even was able to do it back then. So, that one's a big deal. Sort of relating, and all these points relate to each other, but the next topic is sort of in relationships, sort of in your social life and stuff like that. So, Matt, I don't know about you. I don't know how, what, like, if there was a story that you went through or something like that. But obviously for me, this is where personal stuff gets in. This is where it becomes more real, is that, when I started way back in 2013, I was doing Goji Fan. You guys know this. It's a story that I've talked about a lot of the time, and I've wrote about it and everything. But again, for this video, it's appropriate that, at the time I was engaged and everything was going great, and then I was starting this, and all of a sudden, the collecting rush just hit me like crazy. It was like I felt like I needed to collect everything. And it was that aspect of like, oh, it's not just stuff that I really want. It's like, no, I'm going to buy this character even though I have really no opinion on that character or care for that character, but I just got to have him. That started to like snowball into a pretty obsessive, behavior of it. To the point where that was like all on my mind. It was like that was the only thing. I was like, oh, what's the next thing I can buy? Like, what's this and that? And obviously it was to the point where, my fiance would look at me and she'd be like, hey, like, are you, this is a little, you're buying a lot. Like, this is a little crazy. Like, hey, like, instead of going on dates, it was like, oh no, like, I want to get this figure or something like that. It's just bad stuff. And it can have a huge impact and then essentially ruin that relationship. Now, at the time, there was also other aspects going on with that whole thing. It wasn't just collecting, but I know for a fact the collection had a big point in it. I know it had a big reason for that as well. And then it can, lead into mental problems with the addiction. It can start to just spiral into this thing where you feel like, the only way that you can be happy is if you just buy this stuff. Like, if you see the stuff on your shelf and you're like, yeah, that's, you get that small rush of dopamine. You're like, yeah, this is great. But it's less of like having that shelf there and looking at it and being happy. It's more like, oh, that's just filling a hole that's been left, by something else. And so it's, once again, without going too far into it, it's something that I am very passionate about, very strong about, that if you're collecting stuff and if like a family member or if a friend is coming to you and saying, hey, you've been buying a lot of this stuff lately, like, I think you might need to pull back a little bit, or hey, we need rent this month. It's like, it's, these people are coming up to you because they care about you, because they love you, and they're like, they want what's best for you, and they're like, they know that this stuff is a hobby and it makes you happy, but at the end of the day, it's like, if it does start to take over your life, they're gonna call you out on it. They're gonna be like, hey, maybe you should, hey, save that paycheck or something, or you don't really need it right now, do you? That's one of those red flags that I would say that starts to pop up. But so that I'm a big proponent of that. But Matt, what did you like? Is there? I don't know, if anything for you, or if there's like a person about or whatever, if you're comfortable in talking about it, something like that.
I haven't really experienced something like what you went through. You know what I mean? And I think that what you went through is a very there's probably a lot of other stuff stemming from this. And the other thing I don't want to sound like some kind of half-assed psychologist.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And I know you don't either. I'm not saying that,
mm-hmm.
but I guess I'm throwing that out there for the audience because of the fact that it's like I think that surface level, some of these things, when it gets to a point, let's say, and I'm not trying to diagnose you or anything like that, but let's just say, like, surface level, that stuff is happening, and there could be other things happening because of that,
Exactly.
It's like you're trying to, how many times have you heard, the phrasing of like, oh, you're just trying to fill your life with something because you got nothing else, and that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've experienced that, mm-hmm. I'm sure plenty of other people have too. You work 50, 60, 70 hours a week and you don't have anything, and it's nice to come home and get something in the mail, you get to enjoy it for a little bit, and it's just kind of like this cycle, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't think that's a unique story. I think it's just everybody has to do that. Yeah, it's an interesting subject. It's not something that I feel very comfortable with in terms of like speaking as any kind of authority on.
Mm-hmm,
you know what I mean? The closest I got, and it's just more funny than anything. I had a girl I was dating, and she actually stopped dating me because she's like, I had a dream that our life was just cluttered with Godzilla stuff, and clutter makes me anxious, and blah 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 blah. But you want to talk about surface level crap, getting deeper? Like I fully believe that's what the case was, and she was cool, but we weren't right for each other.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's again, I'm gonna keep on coming back to this. It's that thing of like, it's that fine line. You know what I mean? Just like with anything else, you can be drinking yourself to death, or you could be collecting yourself to debt.
To debt, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like it's you just got to do things in responsible increments, basically.
Yeah, and again, it was from my experience with it. It definitely is a matter of filling a hole that something is missing, and you're just trying to. You're like, well, this is, at least I have this. Like, it just, and you keep on going, and it just gets bigger and bigger, and it and I always looked at it as something where back then I was that's when I started, like, I snapped out of it and I started to sell things, and I mean, it was getting so bad to the point that I remember 2014 was coming out, and they were doing all this merchandise for it, and they had, like, at Party City they had these party supplies, like party plates, utensils, things like that. The Carl's Jr. cups that were just branded with Godzilla 2014. I'm trying to remember the other stuff that I got, but it was like, I think also like a, no joke, like a theater bag that just had Godzilla 2014, or like a popcorn bag or something. And I was like, oh, I gotta have that. Like, I literally had a section in my collection that was like the party plates and party utensils and things like that, napkins. Like, that's how bad it got. And it was like, okay, that's like you're not even using, the plates or the napkins or anything like that. It's like, okay, that's a little bad right there. When you start to compare, like when you look at this really, expensive figure and you're like, oh, this figure's awesome, but then you equal the same value to a napkin just because it has Godzilla's name on it, I would say that's when you might have a problem there. Like, just my honest opinion, I do think that might be an issue there, where you start equaling everything out as the same high value when really it's not, But the biggest thing too with that is when you start to feel that your collecting is becoming more of a bill than becoming an excitement. And it was something that we talked about earlier, but it's the idea that when you start out collecting something, you get this, it's a very fun experience. You're like, I remember when I first bought X Plus, you can literally see the old video that I had, and I'm like, visibly excited beyond belief of getting this thing in the mail. I've heard all about it, and opening the box, and like when you see an X Plus figure for the first time, this is just a little thing too. It's such like a crazy experience. You're like, wow, these things are, because the pictures don't really do it justice. It's like you look at those things, you're like, wow, this is awesome, and the excitement you get. I'm gonna tell you that if you keep on doing that in a very fast repetition or progression, you're gonna get those diminishing returns every time you get a new figure.
Just like with everything else too.
Exactly. It's gonna be something where like you're never gonna get that same first like high off of that. And it's not X Plus, it could be Bandai, Marmot, whatever. But like when you start collecting, if you don't do it in that responsible way, that's where you're gonna start to feel like you're not gonna get that amount of excitement that you want every time. And that's when it's going to start to feel like a more of a monthly bill. Again, when it comes to X Plus, when I started collecting them, it was not every month that a new figure was, coming out that I would want, but it was when Diamond issue or the Diamond reissues of X Plus started to come out. And those, their waves were different depending on the month, because at this point I wasn't really buying Japanese X Plus ones because they were way expensive. I also don't remember if I didn't know the ways to get them, but with Diamond, they were reissuing a bunch of these really rare figures, and I was like, cool, this is my way to get them, because you could get them at a great price. It was like $160 every time a new figure would come out. But they were, it was innocent at first. They were like, oh, just 2 figures for this month. And then 2-3 months later, they would come out with another release, another wave of those figures. And it felt like, okay, that felt great. Same thing at the Defo Reels. It's like, that's a good progression. Like, okay, every couple months, I get like 1 figure. That's exciting. You have something to look forward to. It's great, and it's cheap, it's affordable, like, awesome. But then all of a sudden, X Plus is like launching all these lines and all these figures at once every month, and it's just, and then you start to get the feeling of like, oh wow, you look at the release calendar, and then you look at your bank and you're like, can I pull this off? Like, can I, when you start to get that dread or stress feeling, that is again a red flag sign. That's like, hey, this might not be a good idea. Like, you don't necessarily need that one, or however that needs to work out, but again, if you feel the need that you're needing to collect everything that whatever toy line's coming out with or whatever, and when it's feeling more of that bill, it's like, because to be honest, none of us need more bills on top of the bills we already have. So why have your hobby be an extra addition to that stress? It should not be something like that. I've even had to do it with video games. I've had to be very selective with the video game releases that are coming out. I can't be out there buying every single game that comes out a month because it's ridiculous. So especially now that games are $70 instead of $60 because of the new hardware that's come out. So I have to be very picky with what I get. But I feel like when you start to do that, when you start to buy things that really matter to you, and you kind of hand pick things, and it's not as every month or so, you do get more of that excitement because it's been a while. When I did get and again, you can tell from my first X Plus unboxing, I was super excited. And then from the last X Plus unboxing, at least I would say when I was doing the channel, so Shin Godzilla was the last X Plus at that point. You can tell in my face, I was just doing it for the camera. It was like, oh, cool, yeah, X Plus, perfect. Put it on the shelf and just stare at it and be like, well, that's $160 right there. Cool. But then, many years later comes around, I get the Yuji Sakai 84 because it's been a while since I got an X Plus figure, and I was pretty hyped. I was like, you can see it in the video. It's really cool. Like, yeah. So that's what I would say in terms of a big start, like stating point with that is if it's becoming more of this stress with the hobby, that's where you do need to, at least I would say you do need to start to like maybe take a inventory on yourself and be like, maybe I should a little change up how I do some things. Matt, what's your opinions on that becoming a build rather than a hobby?
Yeah, I also think that something else to keep in mind too is if you don't have the space to display it.
Oh God, yeah.
Chances are you probably shouldn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
I say that, and look, I got a good friend who does a lot of collecting, and I love him to death. But his collection is so massive that there's a lot of his collection are still in the boxes of which they're in, and that has just become a mountain upon itself.
Yeah.
And me, I mean, of course, sometimes we can't display everything, but if the majority of your stuff is in that state, it's just kind of like, oof, I mean, look, you do what makes you happy, I think the real power to this whole particular thing, the video that you're doing here today, is talking about your experiences and really trying to talk to people who may be in a similar thing, because you're right, this is not something I hear much about. You hear a lot of people talking about getting stuff, and they're always excited about getting stuff, but there's never been that conversation that I've seen, that discourse about, again, collecting responsibly, how to pull back, from that, and how to recognize these things. I was curious, and this is kind of like going off topic here.
No,
like,
yeah.
How much? And I got a calculator open. I just want to see something. How much do you think? And this is not to put you on the spot or to shame you or anything. This is I'm just curious about the number. Roughly, how much were you spending on X Plus stuff a year? Would you say? Like, how many releases were there? What was the general kind of?
If I can remember, I know it was at least. I guess on a good base point, $160 for one X Plus figure. I would say that's like a good base standard. Obviously, there's variations with that number. It could be more, it could be less, but I think 160 is the good 30 centimeter standard price. I don't know what it is today. It could have gone up. I haven't been looking at like Hobby Search or seeing how their prices are. Yeah. Oh, it is still. So it's
no, I said we can stick with.
Oh, we can stick with 160. Okay. So yeah, if we say like 160 for one figure, but depending on. Because then when I was really into X Plus, I was getting Japanese releases because of Hobby Search. So I would say, it had to be maybe $300 because I need to also remember shipping, because shipping was a little more expensive because it's overseas for that stuff. But yeah, I would say a decent amount would be towards that $300, $350. For a month.
Per fig?
No, not per figure.
Okay, per month you said.
Per month, yeah. I would say around that. I would say that's how much, and that's not counting other pieces of merchandise that were floating around that weren't X Plus that I was also doing. But I would say that's a good number.
Okay. Well, all I did was I just took the $350 that you said and just put that in 12 months. So that gives us about $4,200, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That right there, and I understand that this is more of a perspective thing, but this is something I'm always going to throw at people and stuff like this, and I speak to this in terms all the time now. It's the only thing I go by, and it relates to something a little bit more important, I think. $4,200 would get you probably about 3 weeks in Japan. I'm talking flight, I'm talking hotel, I'm talking your spending money and your food money and stuff like that, and that's just for one person. If you went for a week, you could probably take your fiance with you or something like that. The reason why I look at it in terms of that, and you can apply this to just about anything else, is because something like that is a life experience of which is you are going to think about for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? It's not going to be something that lasts for the 5 minutes of which you open it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And there are places like Japan, obviously, very important to the people who like this stuff because that's where it originates from. There's a lot of cool things over there. My point being is like trying to trade in collecting stuff for more life experiences. Even something like going to G Fest or something.
Yeah.
Is like that because you're going out there, you're doing something new. There are tons of people that I know that have never been that really want to go, and for various reasons they haven't. But it's important to maybe take that collecting thing and go and enjoy another aspect of that love of the thing. You know what I mean? Because in the end, it's going to give you so much more of a worthwhile perspective on things. You know what I mean? And it's going to ultimately mean way more to you in the end than whatever dozen X plus stuff you're going to be getting. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I have another friend, and I'm not trying to bash on him, but he's been wanting to. He went to Japan 6 years ago for the Shin Godzilla premiere. Is it 6 years ago? I guess so.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, man, time flies.
I know.
6.5 years ago, actually. I think that's what. But like, he's been wanting to go back ever since, and I'm just like, dude, just like you got the funds. It's sitting in your boxes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You hold off on that, or you sell that. I mean, there it is, right there. I think that it takes a little bit to recognize, and it takes a little to get to that point. I kind of went off into a tangent. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that kind of thing. Is you're trading like little things for more of actual real life memories and experiences.
Going out, like, I'm not trying to say like go outside and feel some grass, like because collecting is fun and stuff. But I mean, how much cooler would it be if you've never been before? You go to Akihabara, which is basically Weeaboo Disneyland, and you go on a little toy hunt. You know what I mean? You're gonna be just inundated with stuff. You know what I mean? It's the same thing at a convention. I mean, you're still going out there and experiencing stuff, but it just brings a little bit more of a perspective, and you might be tempted to spend a lot of money, but you might need to hold back. But I don't know, man. It's a lot more of a fulfilling thing than just oh, hey, look, here's a hunk of plastic, cool, shaped in the form of something I enjoy.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. Anyways.
Yeah.
Experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll tell you too, on that idea of calculating how much you spend, and then figuring out is that worth it? Is all that money worth it? I would say no also, because at the end of the day, when I sold everything, when I was downsizing the collection like crazy, the amount of money that I spent on all that stuff, you're not going to get that back if you try to sell it all. Because one, for me, I took them out of the boxes. They weren't mint in boxes, so of course that automatically drops the value. And they've been sitting on a shelf for a bit. Maybe they have some dust on them or whatever. That the amount that I got back was like a fraction of how much I spent on all that leading up to that moment. So that's another thing too. It's like you either, if you know that this is something that you really want to get into and you really do want to spend all that money, you got to know that if you want to sell that stuff, you're not going to get that back. Like you're going to get a little bit of it back, and it's going to be like a good amount. Of course, it's not just, you're not going to get like nothing, but it's not going to be the amount that you put back in. So the investment that you're doing is, again, it's something where investing into stuff like that is not necessarily the same as investing into going to a trip to Japan, or like a lot of things like with us content creators, investing into pieces of hardware. I actually just got myself a new computer, which I'm using right now, and it has helped me make production stuff a lot easier. Photoshop opens up quicker, Premiere Pro opens up faster. I don't have crashes happening, glitches, or anything like that. This computer, pricey, but at the same time, a way better investment than going out and buying a piece of plastic that's just going to stare at me while I sleep. So it's one of those perspective things, and that was a really good point, Matt. I really appreciate you bringing that up. The last topic that I want to talk about with this, and then we'll go into a lot more positive stuff, guys. Trust me, we're almost through it. Is this thing that I've noticed throughout the years, again, and it's like a lot of this is from my experience, so yours may vary, but when doing content creation in this fandom, in terms of the merchandise and figure collecting and all that stuff, the thing I've saw a lot is this romanticizing of collection hauls or bringing back stuff that like the amount of money that I spent means I am a better G fan than you. Again, I'm not calling anyone out, I'm not saying it, but I have seen it. I have seen it where there are people out there that think that in order to be either a true fan or someone that's like, hey, if you're in this collecting group, you need to have these standards. That there's just this weird romanticized thing of it where it's like, yeah, I went to G-Fest and I brought back like thousands of dollars worth of stuff, and I look at those and I just go, oh, like that's not, I don't, it's not good, and it's a lot of young people too, and that makes me a little sad because I'm like, wow, like you could invest in something, especially right now, like college maybe, or like something that's a little bit more worth saving up for. But I've just noticed this thing of that, and that's another big thing that I want to make sure. And I said this actually, Everett will know what I'm talking about, Godzilla Fan Freaks, if you're watching this. When I went to no, Matt, you were there too, actually, duh, Arizona in the Tucson.
I've never been around you a day in my life. I don't know what you're talking about.
I was
never in Tucson, Arizona with you in 2019.
It was a you were a mirage or something, or yeah, it was Fever Dream. Yeah, I've watched your channel so much, I just imagined you. I
am just a figment of your imagination.
Oh God. This conversation needs to go somewhere else. That's great. No, but when I was in Tucson, Arizona for the Godzilla festival that Everett put on, he had a panel. I think it was similar to we're talking about collecting, but it was a lot more lighter. But there was a section where I remember, and I think one day he'll have a video recording of it. I know he recorded this, so one day he'll post it on his channel, hopefully. Everett, get on that. During the panel, there was a part where I do remember I felt like I had to speak it, because just the same thing, like I feel like I have to make this video just based on my experiences. I was like, do not let anyone out there tell you that that you need to have this amount of figures, or you can't buy that certain figure, otherwise you're not a fan. Like, don't let anyone tell you that. I am still a huge Godzilla fan, and you guys can see what my collection looks like, and it is like literally just 2 shelves, very spread out, very small amount of stuff. But those things on my shelf right now, I can look at my collection and be super proud of it and be like, those are awesome, and I'm still a huge fan. Just because I don't have this giant wall of plastic behind me does not make me any different than anyone else in terms of the community. You can even be someone who doesn't even have a thing of merchandise and still be a fan. You don't have to collect anything. Let's say you're a streamer. You watch the movies on, I don't know, whatever sites are streaming them or something. If you're just a fan, like you just like watching the movies, that's perfectly fine. Don't let anyone say that, oh, you need to buy all this to get into cool kids club. Like that's something that I've seen, and it's horrible. Like, it's one of those elitist fan mindsets that's just, it's in every fan base too. It's not just the Godzilla fan base. I'm not saying that, but it's a pretty bad habit that I think needs to be eradicated, because it's just a bad mentality to have, because then you're teaching that to younger generations, and they're going to hit the same problem where they're going to buy all this stuff and then end up impacting their life horribly, and it's not going to be good. So that's just a little, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I just felt like that was, another thing there.
No, I think it's important. And I got to tread lightly on this, because I think there's 2 different things there. You had mentioned, and I'm not calling you out, just so you know.
Yeah.
You had mentioned, like, you see like these young people, like with their G-Fest hauls and stuff. It's entirely possible they could have been saving up all year just to have that experience. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is like the only time they get to go. Maybe, they ask for, Christmas gifts and birthday gifts just to be money, because in July they'd be going to this place that I really like. So, we're not really quite certain about kind of like what their stories are or anything like that. But then you talk about this other, part of fandom and stuff. And, I am absolutely a grumpy recluse, and I continue to get grumpier and reclusier. I know that's not a word, but with this fandom, because I am no fan of this fandom. The description that you have given pretty much it permeates every aspect of this fandom, whether it be from the collecting side of things, whether it be from kind of like the more scholarly writing side of things. Like you got, they're all over the place. There's a lot of personalities out there that need to be the guy, you know, the king of the kaiju, you know, and I find those people old and boring and not interesting in the slightest, you know, and exactly what you said. Really about kind of recognizing the importance of something, because, you know, this is gonna make me sound like such a butthead, but I'm gonna say it. And
say it. Do it.
It's just because of the fact that I'm honest, you know. The people who don't try to become like celebrities in this fandom, you know what I mean, are the ones that I typically enjoy the most, because they're not out to, you know, I have the most toys and my ego needs to be satisfied, that kind of thing. And look, I mean, you and I, we're of a different breed because we're content creators and we're creatives, and as creatives, we have egos. This is the bottom line. Some people's egos are bigger than others, but the people who aren't in our space tend to be people who are just like, yeah, you know, I really enjoy it. You know what I mean? And I always have much better conversations with that. Yeah. And none of these people should be dictating anything. Like, if you're a fan of something, you're a fan of something, you know? And of course that's subjective opinion. Yeah. I think that, you know, nobody, not myself, not you, not anybody, could aspire to be the king of the kaiju in this fandom. No. It amounts to nothing. You might get some, you know, fun experiences here or there, but your life's not going to change, and it is a fruitless endeavor filled with a lot of personalities of which belong in, you know, cartoons. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Yeah. Just enjoy what you enjoy, and don't let other people dictate, you know, what you do ultimately. So
I remember there was a long time ago when I was in the Godzilla collectors group on Facebook. Like the biggest one. I think it was the most popular, because I know there's a few groups that are called the Godzilla collector group or whatever, but this one was like the number one, like had the most amount of people, all that stuff. Not naming names, but full of elitists. Oh my god. Me coming in there, having my background with Bandai Creation, no, Bandai Creation was frowned upon. They were bad interpretations of the Motherland's figures. Like that, no, you can't be collecting that stuff. That stuff is crap. You're not a collector. Oh my god, it was horrible. I had to jump out of that ship so fast. I was like, I'm not doing this. Screw this. I'm out. I'm not, you know, and I don't know if the group is still like that, but holy crap, back then, it was bad. I mean, you said anything good about Bandai Creation, and they would just, the comments, just bunch of negatives. All of it. It was like, wow, that's ridiculous.
See, you're definitely opening up a Pandora's box right now, and I'm not saying that in a negative way.
Oh,
because, no, well, all I'm saying is, like, it is such that discussion, you know, I mean, that's gatekeeping involved, and then it goes into, well, gatekeeping's bad. Yeah. I actually would argue that it's not all of it. I think that form of it is bad. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But any form of gatekeeping that actively denies somebody from enjoying this or sharing in the love of it, it's negative and really is dumb. Yeah. You know what I mean? But yeah, that kind of behavior is just kind of like,
yeah, it turned me off way quick.
I let them be stopped. If that is their entire lot in life, it's like, why? I spend $3,000 a year on X Plus, and you just do Bandai Creations. It's like, dude, if that is the high point of your life,
it's sad. It's sad. I'm gonna be honest. It's sad.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a very large thing that you kind of like we've kind of stumbled into on this, you know. And I think you and I could talk for literally hours.
Oh yeah,
just fandom discourse and stuff, especially on that side of things, because again, it's just the roots are so deep in so many different aspects of this. Yeah. Sometimes it's just, you know, like ultimately too. Sometimes, even though it sucks, sometimes it's just better not to get into the online space.
Oh yeah, I was like,
nope. Twitter's a cesspool. Facebook is a cesspool. I mean, I know that there's always going to be personalities and stuff at the conventions that people are going to have issues with. I mean, that's been going on for decades.
Yeah, that's nothing new. Yeah.
But you know, you can still find people, you know, and friends and stuff like this in the space. I mean, you and I have known each other for what, the better part of 10 years?
Yeah, pretty much.
Somewhere in there.
Pretty much, yeah.
I still hate your guts, but I still talk to
I
you.
know. I mean, I just, I only have you on here because of brand name recognition. Yeah, that's the only reason why. I got to get those views.
Yeah, you're really scooping low. You know what I mean? I'm the only person that said I would appear on here. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
get someone where you can talk like this.
yeah. You know, it's just there's a lot of good about it. It's just learning to recognize that negative behavior and just either brushing it off or just ignoring it or just not taking part in it, but maybe finding different ways to do that. You know what I mean? Just because you're not in a Facebook group doesn't mean you can't find the small Discord or something that maybe you'll have some like-minded people.
Exactly.
Or something of that nature.
Yeah, and it reminds me, this will actually be a good segue into the positives about collecting, because yes, we're gonna get ourselves out of the mud and be a little bit more brighter now. But I got to give a shout out to Rich Iso, because I remember a long time ago I'd be in conversations with him about collecting stuff, and we would talk about Bandai creation, and he's told me on many occasions that he doesn't like Bandai creation. He's not on that side of the fence that likes those figures. He does think that they are inferior, but when we met, it was always conversations of like, hey, but that's great that you're like in the hobby doing something. Like he told me, it's like, that's great that you're at least collecting stuff like that. It's great that you're having fun with it. It's great that you're buying those kind of figures or whatever. Rich, I don't think he's never been an elitist fan. He's been like the kind of guy that he'll, he has like the expensive figures, but he'll always be so happy with no matter what the young generation buys. Like when he does his last G-Fest, a few G-Fest videos, he's done those what did you buy videos, and he'll just have all these kids come up to him with all these different kind of figures, and he's just like, it's just super fun attitude towards every single buddy. He doesn't analyze the figure they got. He doesn't look at it and go, you could have done better, or like, how much did you spend on that? He doesn't even care. He's just like, that's awesome, dude, like that you got that whatever figure or anything like that. So that's another thing. Like
that's a form of not gatekeeping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The acceptability factor too. Sorry to kind of interrupt you, but just with the Bandai creations in general, or with Playmates currently.
NECA.
I mean, these things are accessible and available to young children or people who might just be, coming into the collecting scene. Some people might not even know what the hell YMSF is or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like if they're getting into it, like just let them get into it. Just because they don't have, maybe they have like lots of bills to pay, or maybe they're young and they don't have a job, and or maybe. They have a family.
It's a birthday gift from a grandma.
Just because they don't have 5 G's to spend on, hunks of plastic means nothing, because all that means is that money's going, in other places. Like, just let people enjoy what they enjoy.
I know. Yeah. You can't do that in this fandom. You can't. Nope.
Well, like I said, I'm definitely no fan of this fandom.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry. Now you got me going on.
See, there we go. Yeah. See. Okay. So, like I said, we'll get to more positive aspects. We'll go a little bit more of a speedier process with this last bunch here.
Cool.
But so the positive aspects of collecting, again, the biggest thing I think is one of the most fun things is the thrill of the hunt. I've had one experience in my life in terms of collecting stuff that was a thrill of a hunt. But Matt, I'm going to let you go first. What was something that was a thrill for you to hunt down and you finally got?
Oh, dude, that's
especially your history, because I know all the different stores you've been in.
The thrift store stuff.
Yeah,
there's tons. I mean, I found a Gorosaurus '93 Bondi for like $25, I think, or maybe even less than that, tagged. There's nothing that kind of comes across off the top of my head, but it's really just about just kind of stumbling across something. It's all a matter of being at the right place at the right time and luck. That's it. I don't have a holy grail item I was like absolutely after or something. But there's been many occasions where it's just been like stumble into something like, oh, cool, the Gorosaurus, the King Kong pamphlet that I showed you.
Yeah, I think that would be a holy grail.
Well, dude,
that pamphlet.
Here's another one. Sorry, I'm gonna just show this off. War of Gargantuas. That's the original 66 or 66 one right there.
There you go.
Price tag 30,000 yen. So on a good day, that would be about 300 bucks.
Yeah.
$20 shipped. You know what I mean? But again, it's luck. There's nothing more to that. You just got to be on the lookout. So, but it's always fun to just kind of look for that stuff, and then when you see it, you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we're gonna zero in. What about you?
For me, I'll always remember trying to. Of course, it's a funny story at the end, but trying to hunt down the 1984 Memorial Box Bandai figure. That guy is super rare everywhere, and it was at G-Fest 2015, my second G-Fest, and I remember being in the dealer's room, and I was like, okay, this is here. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna try and go for it, whatever. And I went to like 3 different tables, all of them saying that, either we don't have it or we just sold our last one or whatever. And I was like, dang. And it was one more table. I think it was the last the second to last table told me, hey, check out that one table over there. I heard they have one. And so I remember rushing over there, of course, mobs of people, so I'm just, get out of my way, and rushing that table and found him. Like, I had him there. And it was just like such the coolest feeling when I got him. I was like, yeah, I have him in my hand. And then, of course, many years later, sold the guy and regretted it ever since. And again, Everett, he will never let me off the hook with that. He'll always give me crap for it. Like, I remember when you got rid of your 84 Memorial. I'm like, yes, Everett, I know. So, but that was a fun thrill to hunt one. I think also that kind of, Matt, because you said you didn't necessarily have a Holy Grail figure, right? Or any piece of merchandise necessarily.
I got favorites in my collection, but there was never like that one where I'm just like, oh, dude, like this was the one that I was like looking for so long, kind of thing.
For me, I think when I found the 50th anniversary Perfect Soundtrack collection, the 6 boxes, that when I found those, I remember a long time ago I don't even remember the site anymore. It wasn't eBay. It wasn't any site that I don't think anyone knows about because I don't even remember the name. But they had them in stock for some random reason. Because I was just scouring Google for this box set. Because when I first discovered that box set, I was like, that's what I want. I want that. Because I love the music of Godzilla, and the fact that I can have all of them in this amazing arrangement with a bunch of bonus material and extras. Awesome. And I remember when I was able to just get all of those, I was like, yes, this is, like, I think if you look at my collection now, I would say that's a holy grail. Like, those 6 boxes right there, that's just, yeah. I think same thing with getting deals. You've talked about it many times. Probably in your, adventures of thrift stores and all that. You'd come across, like you said, the Gorosaurus, and the pamphlets there. That you found those great deals on them. I think for me, I don't remember if I've ever come across like an amazing deal on something. Yeah, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head with that, but. I think also, the feeling of accomplishment that people get when you either finish a line. I remember when I finished, or at least when I got caught up with the Bandai Creation line, that was a really cool feeling of accomplishment. I was like, yeah, look, I was able to get all that. That's cool. That I know can also be a good, dopamine rush with that. In terms of that, was there anything, Matt, in your collecting career that there was like either a line of something or a series of pieces of merchandise, was it was figures or movies or something that once you finished collecting it, you were like, yes, I feel accomplished? Like, what was there anything in that?
Off the top of my head, honestly, no. Mostly because I don't think there was anything I was like, I absolutely have to have every single one of these. Like, there's a couple of book like series behind the scenes stuff that I collected all of them because they were just such great things. I mean, so some complete sets here and there, but nothing I was just like, oh man, I'm so happy that now I have like all of them now or something like that, because it's always expanding, it's just like there's it just seems like there's never an end to collecting one thing.
I think with everybody though, especially everyone watching too, that in terms of like the basic thing that every collection has is Godzilla movies. I feel like that's the base, like that's how you start, I think, initially. For me, I know that there were many different stages where I was like, I felt accomplished when I was able to get all the movies on DVD. And then Blu-ray was coming around with all those releases. Like now I feel super accomplished because I have every movie on Blu-ray. But now I have this new thing where I want to get them on steelbooks. So the only steelbook Blu-rays I have are the 1998. No, I know. I just, talking about, the fan base gatekeeping. Like, oh, don't talk about 98. Oh, no, I will, because I enjoy 98. Suck it, internet. So, I have a steelbook of that. I have and then I have the steelbooks of all the MonsterVerse Godzilla films. So, like, of course, those are the ones I can get because the others, they haven't even made those. But if they did, I would upgrade those. So, like, I'd upgrade my current Blu-rays to the steelbook ones. But, like, so that's going to be like I don't know when that will happen, but if it ever does happen, if Toho ever decides to release a steelbook set with, and have it as a region 1, not just a Japanese only release, but like a American release, something like Criterion or whatever. Like if Criterion did what they did with Showa, where they did a Heisei and Millennium set, I would totally buy that. I would be like, okay, I'm going to trade in my other Blu-rays and get that. Because what I do is I upgrade my media now when it comes to the DVDs. I don't, because I used to have VHSs and old DVDs and all that, but I was like, I don't need multiple, same movies but different formats. I just want the one movie in the best format that it's available at. So for me, I'm like, that's for at least for me, that's the 4K Steelbook Blu-rays. That's like the best one you can get at the moment. If there's anything else that comes out after that, then I guess so, but that's as far as it is right now. So, but like the Showa movies, I think the best set is the Criterion. That's like the best version you can get of those movies on Blu-ray because they have a bunch of extras, and also the movies just look really good in HD. Like they really cleaned them up. So that's that. But is there like for you with movies collecting, like, I mean, do you have all the movies on Blu-ray or something like that?
I do.
Okay.
Some of them strictly in Japanese too.
Oh yeah.
Like but they're like the official Japanese releases.
Oh, the Toho ones on the yeah.
So like the anime trilogy, Singular Point.
See, that's the stuff I'm waiting on. I'm like, I want to wait for an American release, but I don't know when they're gonna do that. I'm like, I'm just waiting.
I wouldn't hold your breath, I wouldn't hold your breath. I think Netflix has pretty much been like, no, we're just gonna keep it as is. Yeah, with the movies, like I used to get rid of a lot of them. I used to do what you did and stuff, but then I found out that with the because if you remember, there was that Kraken release thing they did. They released like some of these, like Godzilla versus the Sea Monster.
Yeah, I remember those. I had those.
And there's a couple other ones that they did, and I got rid of those because I was like, oh yeah, like Criterion set's coming out. Then I found out that those copies are actually better in terms of the transfer than the Criterion set is.
Oh, they
because
are?
The Criterion set, because the Criterion set uses like 2008 transfers that are actually worse than the current Japanese, sets because Toho doesn't want to reverse import or have that problem.
Well, thanks, Matt. Now you just ruined my collection. I'm gonna have to
sorry,
sell
I'm
everything.
sorry.
I'm gonna have to rebuy those Krakens, and I know that those are expensive.
Never stops. You know what I mean? So now you just got to reacquire. So it's I have all the movies I think now on Blu-ray. I mean, because the Criterion set is good. There's plenty of things in there that like you can't find elsewhere.
I think it's just the bonuses are really cool. They have a lot of featurettes that are
the bonuses.
Cool.
I mean, but again, like, where are you gonna get in the West? Where are you gonna get Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 74 on Blu-ray?
Exactly. It's the only way.
You're not gonna be able to find that.
Yeah.
But I've kept all my DVDs. I've kept all I've been keeping most of these releases just because it's like there always seems to be something missing with every
Right, they can't just make the one perfect. Like the perfect soundtrack collection, it's perfect. It's the title's there for a reason, but there's never been a perfect movie collection, with everything.
No, and I don't think there ever will be.
Right, because it's just it's too many hands in the cookie jar, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with those movies. They're tied up in so much, so I think this is the same thing for the anime trilogy and Singular Point. I think Netflix, you're right. They're just going to hold it for as long as they can, and then probably 10, 20 years later, we'll eventually get some type of, format, like physical media or something. Or I don't know, maybe even by 20 years everything will be digital anyway, so I guess it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, 20 years from now, we're not even going to own movies anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, we're going to have the privilege of, like, you know, digitally owning them until the companies decided they want to yank it.
Yeah, until they cut it off. Yep, exactly. So, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna So let's. I think ending on probably what I would say the best aspect of collecting is finding friends through collecting. Is, you know, you find those friend circles, you find those groups on Facebook or Discord or something like that that have similar interests in what you collect. I mean, there's literally a group for every type of collector out there. You got model kit collectors, you got X Plus collecting, Bandai collecting, NECA collecting, stuff like that. I mean, there's just all sorts of people that you can find, and I think that that's, you know, again, a lot of friends that I've made have been because of the collecting aspect of Godzilla. I would never have met any people of the people that I know. Like I said, Rich is one of them through X Plus, and so yeah, I think that's a very important positive aspect of collecting. And I think what goes into that is that your friends can also keep you held accountable for those red flags or whatever, but also can be there to help, like, awesome trades or awesome discounts, and be like, hey man, I'm looking for this particular figure, where can I find him? Like, you know, I remember going to Rich all the time when I was buying X Plus, going like, hey, where can I get this guy? Where's the good deal for this? Like, he taught me how to use Hobby Search. He showed me the best places to research and all that. And I remember him always telling me, like, don't do eBay for X Plus. Do not do it. You know, like, it's, you know, it's unless you have to, like, unless it's whatever, but or unless you find a really good deal on eBay. But you know, I remember he was like a really good you know, just a teacher in that aspect. So I had a lot of fun with collecting stuff just through finding friends and just discussing it and making videos like this one in particular. Doing this video about collecting, regardless of how negative it can get or how deep or whatever, this is a lot more fun than waiting for a figure in the mail, because I'm actually able to talk to a friend about figures and having cool different opinions on stuff. And like, this is something that's, I just feel a lot more valuable than a hunk of plastic. So
Totally. Yeah, there's not really much to add on that, because it's like, you know, when I was younger, my grandfather, he was a big model railroader, and he always would get together with his fellow model railroaders. They would all get together and, you know, do their little thing. And it's just, you know, having friends with a similar hobby, especially in such a niche thing like this, is always very cool. And it can always, you know, lead to some very cool things, whether it just be, you know, in terms of, like, you know, you could get people to cut you deals or trades or whatnot, but also just because of the fact that, you know, it's nice to talk to people about this stuff, because not many others really can tell you the differences between Sanda and the Gyra X Plus or something. You know what I mean? Like, like random things that most normal people are not going to understand what the hell it is. So yeah, I mean, that's really, I mean, when it comes right down to it, like when we're talking about the fandom at large, I mean, that's the best thing, is just to be able to find those friends in there, you know, within that space. You know, I've made friends through the collecting scene. I've made friends through the content creation scene, and it's the best part of the gig. You know
it is,
I mean?
Hands down.
It's a small part of the gig, but it's relationships that you make there are gonna, you know, theoretically last a lifetime.
Yeah,
you know, I've made some incredibly good friends out of doing this.
I mean, not me though, because we hate each other, but we're just doing this. We're just doing this for the views.
Important question or anything. I don't know if that's public knowledge or anything.
Yeah,
but...
no, not yet. But yeah, it's yeah.
You can cut that out.
No, it's good.
Yeah, but definitely, like you and me, I'm only here to hopefully get a little bit of boost on my side. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
My analytics,
yeah, exactly. It's just.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hurting with views, so I gotta just get some type of, you know, brand recognition. Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody knows monstrosities, whether it's good or bad. So it's
mostly bad, but yeah.
Every time I talk to you, you always say that. Mostly bad.
Well, it is mostly bad. Like I make enemies out of everybody, whether intentionally or not. Like, it's just like.
Well,
well,
Matt, you haven't from me, so you're good. You're good there. So, yeah, I think also a last little part on that. I think also living vicariously through other collectors too, and living through friends that have either a figure that you really want, but you get that excitement through a friend that you see. Like, for instance, I sold my 84 Memorial Box figure, but Everett, every time we talk about it, I know he has one. So I just get giddy and excited just to see his that he has, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. I got my dopamine. I don't need it, but I'm excited. I'm lived vicariously through him of having that. I think, and also like he's been on a collecting binge of vinyl records of these new the new vinyl records that are coming out of some of the Showa films, and that's another thing that I've been living vicariously through him, because I'm like, I don't really need those, but it's just I watch his videos and I get excited. I'm like, that's awesome, like that's cool, that's a cool piece of merchandise. So yeah, so that's what I would take away from that, is just I think the more important thing is friends, having those circles and whatever. Yeah, but that I think is going to conclude really this discussion. There's not much else to go over. I know that the main bulk of it is hard. It's hard conversations. It's tough, and to be honest, there's probably a lot of things. Even as I look back on this video as I'm editing it, there's probably going to be things that I wish I would have said, or things maybe that I wish I wouldn't have said, or whatever. But this type of conversation, I think, is something that needs to be talked about more. I think people need to be more comfortable talking about it. It's okay to talk about these certain things. It's a thing of like mental health. It's okay to talk about that stuff. It's important to talk about that, because that's what's going to get people through things. And when I was going through my dark times, I didn't necessarily have a lot of people that could help guide me to find the right way. I had to just buckle down and figure it out myself, which is fine. But I would love to have, if there was someone that was going through the thing, I would be like, hey, I've been there. I can help you. I'm very passionate on this topic, and it's important. I think it's definitely important. On top, it's just the opposite of, like I said, the romanticized version of it, of collecting and all that. I think we need to also look at the other side most of the time. But just it's what Rich has said a lot: buy what you want, buy what you like. It's what Matt says at the end of his videos: buy responsibly. Just enjoy what you want. Get stuff that's really meaningful to you. I think that's the biggest thing. I know that a lot of the times when you want to buy a figure line, you want to get every single one of the guys in there. But if there is a monster or a certain character that you look at and you're like, I really don't like that character, then don't get them. Don't get them, because the company who makes them, they're not going to care. They just want your money. So don't feel like you need to buy every single thing just because it has Godzilla's name on it, or whatever you're getting, whether it's Ultraman or Gamera or whatever. Buy the stuff that really is important to you, and I think you're going to be a lot more happier with your collection that way, rather than feeling like dread of, oh my god, X Plus is releasing 5 different figures this month, how am I going to pay for it? Like, don't get yourself in that situation. Maybe pick one out of all those releases out of that month to buy. If pick the one that most excites you, and I think that's how you're gonna have a healthy collection instead of a detrimental one. So any last thoughts, Matt, on this whole discussion?
Trade plastic for life experiences.
That should be put on a shirt.
It should.
There you go. Yeah.
And you can take that into a lot of different directions,
Yeah.
But I think I really do think that do what makes you happy, but do it responsibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this video. I think, if I am thinking right, because we're recording this a little earlier than Godzilla month, but I'm trying to think, this should be the second to last one. So I think there'll be one more Godzilla month video after this, and it'll be it. But thank you guys so much for watching this discussion video. Thank you, Matt, for taking the time to have this discussion with me. It was very fun, as always. Yeah, and that'll do it. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you later.